Welcome to Running on Reddit. r/Askreddit. Lawyers of Reddit, what's the worst way you've seen a person screw over someone else in court, whether it be criminal, civil, or divorce proceedings? Represented a guy that stole 3 trucks from his work. Only 2 were recovered before trial. He showed up to a motion hearing in the 3rd one. Oops. I took my ex to court because she had used my social security number to sign up for cable. I found out about it when she stopped paying for the service. She screwed herself over by just being herself. We show up to court. I turn in the contract from the cable company, showing my social security number and her own name signed on the contract. She didn't even try to forge my signature. She signed her own name in and tried to deny that she had any part of it. The judge tore her apart, and it was nice. Not someone else, but my client screwed themselves. I'm doing landlord-tenant stuff and my client was facing eviction over non-payment, but the client was withholding rent payments because of habitability issues in the apartment. No heat, high lead levels, vermin. This is gonna be an easy win for me. Told my client continually to make sure they don't spend the money, keep it but don't spend it. Because if you show the judge you still have the money, it looks real good for you in terms of making the judge believe that you're withholding for good reasons. We get up in front of the judge. Landlord doesn't have an attorney, so I'm dancing inside. There's no way I can lose. I make my arguments and the landlord makes his. Judge asks my client if they still have the money. Client goes, "Nah, I blew that crap at the casino last week." My wife is the lawyer. Info: when children reach the age of majority, if they do not continue studying and start working, it is not necessary to pay alimony. Info: my wife's client found a new lover, which unleashed the wrath of the ex-wife, who started asking for more alimony for her children. Well, to win the case, it was necessary to prove that the children were working, but they could not get any proof of it. There was not much chance of winning, but they still went to court hoping that with the interrogations they could find information that would put them in evidence. On the day of the trial the children did not go, only the mother and her lawyer were present. Judge: "Madam, tell me why your children could not come." Mom: "They could not get permission at work." Judge: Lawyer: "Mom." Another few seconds of silence. Judge: "Well, that was fast. Wrecked. Beyond ducking recognition." To quote a friend of mine. Am lawyer. Saw someone screw himself. I work as a public servant in a criminal law judge's office, and since I have a law degree I don't normally do administrative work, though I get to be with the judge in some of the hearings. Last month we had a huge drug trafficking case. I'm talking about 20 or more people involved, months of investigation, undercover agents, videos, audio, the whole ordeal. Hearing lasted 3 days. Anyway, when it was time for one of the defendants to be on the stand, so the prosecutor could read the charges he was accusing him of, he was pleading not guilty, as he very loudly stated from the majority of the hearing, up until my boss, the judge, told him to shut up, or he would be admonished, to which he replied, "What are you gonna do, arrest me?" Which, to be honest, was actually a bit funny. The prosecutor, as part of the facts of his case, told him that he was being accused of selling, trafficking, and carrying X amount of X drugs, with the base of his operation being his house, where he lived with his partner. Mind you, said partner wasn't even in the hearing. She wasn't arrested or anything as there was nothing tying her to the case. He said, "Wait up, I was the one selling the drugs, she didn't do anything." His lawyer, a state-assigned public lawyer, face-palmed so hard it's actually recorded in the audio of the hearing. He still pleaded not guilty. You hear that? That is the sound of a facepalm echoing around the world. It still travels to this day. I'm being sparse on details here due to confidentiality, but I had a client who was accused of a very nasty Shrekshit offense. He had an alibi. He was at work, where he was the boss. He had an employee who could absolutely vouch for his being there. I talked to the employee confirmed this. It gets closer to the trial, and around the time when I need to send in an alibi notice, which is advance notice to the Crown, so that they can investigate the alibi and determine whether or not it's true. But I'm being careful, so I call the employee up again. Turns out my client fired him in the interim, and so the employee quite candidly tells me, oh, yeah, he was definitely at work. But that's not what I'll say in court. Duck that guy, he is going down. I did not call him as a witness or file the alibi notice. Still won the trial, but if I hadn't thought to call the guy, or if he'd been less candid, my client would have been ducked hard. Shrek's offender registry, jail time, the works. Completely innocent. Not a lawyer, but happened to me and some buddies in college. So a group of friends and I rented a 5-bedroom house in college. And being the group of guys, we were partied pretty hard and were really rough on the house. We knew going in we were not getting our deposit back. Well, part way through living there, the septic started to have some problems. Whenever someone used the downstairs shower, it would drain slowly, i.e. slowly fill as you used it. Also, one of the room's carpet would get wet. So we emailed the property service company to fix it. 2 weeks later they sent out a plumber to snake the line and leave. Well, that didn't fix it, so we emailed again. 2 to 3 weeks, plumber, snake, leave. Still not fixed. Email and 2 to 3 weeks and they scope the line. Turns out, roots had grown into the line, so they had to do a big ol' process to completely remove all the roots. Now it's fixed. Well, we all move out, go our separate ways. One of my buddies goes to Australia for 9 months. When he gets back he comes home to a bunch of voicemails. Turns out the property company is coming after us for like $5,000 on top of the deposit. They tried to pressure him into either paying the money or he would be taken to court. He told them he would see them in court. For the couple months leading up to the court date he would get calls telling him to pay and it would all go away. Day before the first day of court they call him and tell him to pay $2,000 and give them info for one of the other people on the original lease. He says go to hell and see you in court. First day of court is just to make sure everyone shows and to schedule the actual case. Lawyer for the property company shows up, is scrambling to figure out what is going on. Had no records beyond the original lease, which changed a couple times as people moved in and out. My buddy helps him out by giving him copies of the multiple emails that we sent to get them to fix the septic and the damage it did to the house. Told my buddy he would let us know how they wanted to proceed. Never heard from the company again. Someone I knew had a pro deo case where she had to defend a person who had been charged with a criminal offense. Don't know what, confidential and whatnot. Even though the police and DA could pretty much pinpoint the crime to her client, there was no evidence to tie him to the crime, circumstantial at best. She had instructed him to shut up and let her do the talking during the trial, as from experience the client sometimes does not know how to answer a question properly. She pleads and can show that the court has nothing on her client. She feels that for once, a pro deo case is going her way. After her plea, the judge thanks her for her plea and turns to her client. He asks if the client had something to add to the plea. Client looks at her, back at the judge, tears well up in his eyes, and he blurts out, "I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again." She threw her notes and everything else she had in her hands at the client, now convict, apparently. She basically got screwed by her own client, who screwed himself even worse. This ain't my first pro deo. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. It just didn't work for this guy though. Haha. Well, not my story, but a prior boss's story. They had a drunk driver kills a car worth of people case at the time, when they were a general practitioner. My boss was representing the family that got hit, one where the 2 kids and the wife had died, but the father had not, and wanted the college guy's drunk driving skin to be mounted on a wall. This was back before Facebook was commonly used in court proceedings, and before tons of people realized that crap is too great for any attorney worth their weight in salt to pass up. So, the kid, drunk driving college kid, had managed to get the judge's sympathy during the first part of the hearing by saying he was sorry, haunted, never going to drink again, this was going to ruin his life, etc. The judge seemed to really be eating it up. Then comes my boss and immediately burns this kid's remorse to the ground by showing numerous Facebook statuses and photos of them binge drinking, partying, and even joking about driving drunk from the date of the accident up until a night ago. The kid looked like he was being forced to swallow hot coals and the judge was absolutely livid. Needless to say, the kid had to do way more than just apologize and be remorseful after that. Not my case, but my dad's. He was the equivalent of a public defender decades ago. There was this guy that would get caught for being drunk in public lewdness, etc. every weekend. He seemed to draw the same judges and was pretty well known to everyone in the courthouse as an absolute lost cause. One of the regular judges had him appear in his court again. The judge is ready to give him a prison sentence because he was driving a car this time, but the guy starts crying that he finally got a job out of town and was trying to turn his life around. Judge tells him, as long as he never makes a mistake in my town again, he would just drop the charges. Well, sure as hell the guy shows up the following Monday. Same judge. Driving drunk again. My dad now has his case. The judge tells him he gave him his final chance, to which the guy sobs and replies, "I was leaving town, Your Honor. But my friends decided to throw me a going away party." The judge was not amused. My dad had to do everything he could to not laugh. I'm currently representing a sweet old lady on a case. I'll be sparse in the details in case anyone figures out who I am. Long story short, this lady's neighbor convinces her that her house is basically unsellable, that her house requires all sorts of repairs, the repairs to the house would bankrupt her, and that she should just sell the house to him. He shows up at her house the next day with documents to sign. She has no idea what's going on, doesn't read anything, actually has an eye condition, and signs everything. When she finally sees a lawyer to close the deal, he says, "What the duck, you can't do this." You see, the price of the transaction was about 36% of what the house is actually worth, and there weren't any repairs that needed to be done that would justify the price. Not kidding, it was stuff like fixing a faucet in the bathroom. Also, she didn't understand that she would have nowhere to live afterwards. Old lady thought she could just stay in the house until she died. To make matters worse, she's living off a modest pension and the other side is suing for the house. They're essentially trying to get her to cave because her legal fees are getting exorbitant. I hate people. Sadly, this vile practice of preying on elderly people is disgusting, and to think that man thought he would get away with selling to receive a 36% cut of the property's value? Unreal. If you like the content and want to support the channel, like and subscribe right now, or you'll be running on fumes. Not a lawyer, but this story always gets me. My biological grandmother died 20 years ago of ovarian cancer. She left all her money, trusts, bonds to my grandfather to use while alive and disperse after death. My grandfather remarried something like 15 years ago to my step-grandma. My grandfather ended up dying first a few years back. My step-aunt is a greedy skank who lives on the opposite side of the country. She's lived off of her mother and my grandfather for all of her life. She'd come over and take them on vacation, where she'd use their money to buy herself things and get a free skiing trip about 8x a year. After my grandfather passed, my step-grandma had to move where her children lived to get care for dementia. My step-aunt has access to not only her own mother's estate, but my grandfather's as well, to take care of her needs. That wasn't enough. She decided to try and sue my dad and uncle for their dead biological mother's estate. My dad is bilaterally paralyzed and in a wheelchair. My uncle is a triple bypass survivor with a pacemaker and multiple stints. Both are on fixed disability income. The court date came, and I literally wheeled my dad in, while my uncle walked with a cane. My step-aunt is entirely able-bodied, and rolling in the millions my step-grandma and grandfather worked their whole lives to earn. The judge took one look at the whole picture, and she was absolutely denied access to my biological grandmother's estate. We were there for less than an hour. Dog, absolutely duck your aunt. She doesn't deserve the A in aunt. I think we should replace it with a lesser grade, like maybe a C. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe and turn on the bell or you'll be running on fumes. See you in the next video.